All right, well, welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is my, well, technically my third time trying to record this. The first time, I didn't realize that OBS Studio, when you're using Edge, just records a black screen on anything that you're watching on Netflix or whatever. So everything that I had done, any visuals I was trying to use, completely wasted. And here I am, re-recording once again. So, I had mentioned a couple weeks ago that I have been planning on doing a review of Netflix's adaptation of Pickman's Model. And if you recall, when I first found out that it was being adapted by Del Toro for his show Cabinet of Curiosities, I actually had a pretty decent set of expectations for it. I was thinking, surely, for someone who is advertised himself as a big fan of Lovecraft's work, that surely this will be a good adaptation.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
And when I heard, or actually when I started watching it, I think I figured out what the real meaning behind Cabinet of Curiosities was. As in, there were several things I was curious about. One, who wrote the screenplay and thought that it was in any way, shape, or form faithful to the original? Two, why on earth were they putting things into the story that they were putting into it that had nothing to do with the original? Three, just how much crack were they smoking when they decided to write the screenplay for it? All these questions and more will never be answered because I can't be bothered to think about it anymore. But let's go ahead and get started here with Del Toro's, and I use the term very loosely, adaptation of Lovecraft's short story, Pickman's Model. So, starting out, this is our protagonist. This is Thurber. He is the one who was telling the story in the original short story to his friend, explaining why he no longer wanted anything to do with Pickman, one of the greatest painters that Boston ever had. And he is currently in his girlfriend's house, painting her, and she is in a rather progressed state of undress, shall we say. But then her dad comes home, and ooh, he's got to rush and get out of the house and all this other stuff. And really all this does is it just shows how much harder it was for guys to get, shall we say, racy pictures of their intended or their girlfriends, fiancés, or whatever, because there was no fancy technology back in the day. You actually had to carry a sketchbook with you, or a painting, or a painting easel with your paint. I mean, it was a long, tedious amount of work that you had to do. I mean, it would take, and you had to do it when the parents weren't home, because Dad could walk in any moment. Next thing you know, you're seeing him drawing his little girl, topless. I mean, nobody needs that. So, for those of you who are younger watching this, just keep in mind, you got it a lot easier than they used to back in the day. I'm not saying you should be doing this. Certainly frowned upon. Nobody needs to be having their stuff out there. But back in the day, courtship was a lot more difficult than what we deal with now. So, just wanted to point that out to you. Be thankful for what you have. So, anyways, he runs out, and next thing you know, he's over at the art club, which is fine and dandy. I'm cool with them showing, okay, well, this is the type of society he was a part of. This is who he was hanging out with. But things start to go off the rails pretty quick, because then you have, let's see here. Where is he? Yeah, their model that comes out. Then you have Pickman, who's over here doing a sketch. And let me see if I can progress a little bit forward. Yeah, let me back it up just a smidge. Let's see, where was it? Yeah. So they notice, whoops. Notice something's odd about Pickman. Yeah, there you go. Because he's already painting weird stuff. Because this guy now has at least 3 arms, and he's got open sores, and he's bleeding out of his side. And ooh, isn't it creepy what Pickman's drawing? Ooh, he's a weirdo. Here's the thing, is if you listen to that original story, you would know the weirdness and what was unsettling about Pickman's drawings had nothing to do with, him just drawing weird things. Although that, obviously the monsters and stuff he painted were clearly part of it. But even Thurber points out that what made his work so unnerving and so unsettling was just how realistic it was. That Pickman was he wasn't a fantasist. He wasn't, embellishing all these, art strokes and whatever. No, he was very much a realist. Everything was clear and precise and detailed and whatever. He drew exactly what he saw. So this whole thing here of, oh, well, he's just drawing a weird and morbid art piece of the model because he's just weird and that's just what he sees. That's how he views the world. That's complete crap. That's not how the original story was. Pickman, there is nothing to indicate that if he had an actual model in front of him, like a human model or whatever, that he would have been doing anything other than drawing exactly what he saw and doing a perfectly fine job of it and a very realistic job of it. I mean, there's nothing... Again, everything the story had to say about what his art style was is he was very faithful to what he was drawing in front of him. Like, that was his forte. Well, that and faces, obviously. So, everybody freaks out. They're like, oh, he's drawing weird stuff. Even the professor, isn't really thrilled with it. Everybody talks about how weird he is, and then he decides to go out and meet with him. And this is where we find out. And look, Crispin Glover's always been a weird guy anyways. But I don't know what type of accent he's trying to do here. But look, I'll just have to play it later on, because there's some better lines where he's just, whatever he's drawing, okay, hang on. Let's see. I talks about what is it you really would like to, that you're really interested in, say, okay, you see these, creepy things here and the drawing and whatever. And again, these are very good sketches, and, it's certainly fitting with what, Pickman would have done. He would have been drawing things like cemeteries, graveyards, cathedrals, churches, whatever. He was using those as the backdrop for the monsters he would paint. And of course, as we find out in the original, the paintings themselves, or the models that he would use, were taken from photographs, which means that these monsters he was drawing were taken from everyday life, from real life. They were real creatures, and that was what the big twist is at the end. So, but here's him talking here. Yeah. So here we go. And again, if this is a Bostonian accent, this is the most over-the-top, stereotypical Boston accent I've ever heard in my entire life. Even the people that I knew from Boston didn't actually talk like this.
Darkness, the ugliness, the corruption. Suffering is living. We cannot let sympathy or altruism shield us from finding the truths of this world.
I wonder if at any point he ever had been watching and by him I mean Crispin Glover. Did he study Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny before he started doing all this? Because here's the thing, like, I can imagine, like, in my brain, let's see, let me pull up the original. So can you imagine if I had been reading this and I decided to do that accent, and back when Pickman was just going on, and he goes and he's talking about the place that he is, that he's rented out. See here, you're interested in this sort of thing. What if I told you I got another studio up there? It's wicked awesome. That would be laughable. It'd be like, holy crap, did Lovecraft really write this? Oh yeah, you gotta see all these other paintings I did. It's really awesome. It's just, you never seen nothing like it. It's wicked cool. No, it's that would be ridiculous. But for whatever reason, that was what Glover decided. Yeah, but for whatever reason, that's what Glover decided to go with and say, yeah, that's the accent I want to model. But anyways, so they have this art competition. He loses because his stuff's just too esoteric and weird. And so he invites Thurber to go to his art studio, which is in his apartment. And he shows him all these weird paintings that he has. He talks about his witch ancestry, which again is, part of the original story. And right here, is this weird picture. No. This is actually very cool. And this is one of the only things I liked about this episode. So if you pay attention to the painting itself, which, let's see, right around, you'll see the subtle movement right here. You see where their hands are moving, you know. And it's a very subtle detail, but what I like about it is that in the original story, Thurber talks about how the paintings were so realistic. It was like he could see what was about to come out of it. In fact, the very last painting that he sees, he says, you know, is almost like one might suspect that it was about to drop its current, you know, prey to, you know, seek a juicier morsel. You know, like it was about to, like the thing was right there about to jump out of the painting at you. That's how realistic it looked. The idea would be that this was almost photorealistic, which back then you couldn't do like through a painting, but that's how skilled Pickman was, and it made it look very, very like, well, again, realistic. That was the whole point. Again, Pickman was a realist, not a fantasist. That's how it was. So here's where things start to get even really, really dumb. So he starts having headaches. He's like, oh my goodness, there's something wrong with this painting. It's messing with my mind. Well, then he runs outside, and there's he ends up throwing up on the side of the street. But then he looks, and there's this carriage driving down the wall. And let's see here. Probably need to back that up just a smidge. So he throws up in the alleyway, and then there's this carriage right around here. Yeah, this is pretty much where I have to pause it because I can't show the actual scene because YouTube will flag it. What's a good way to describe this? So in the carriage itself is a woman with her top exposed, shall we say, and an older man, probably mid to late 50s, early 60s, is, what's a good way to phrase this, is nursing at her teat, both of which appear to be somewhat gangrenous, maybe? Something is rotting.
What the hell?
The milk has gone bad, shall we say.
The milk's gone bad, my friend!
And I have no idea why this is in there. I can't possibly think of a reason, you know, and you know, maybe it was in the original short story and I missed it. It's like, well, you know, Elliot, we went and passed up, let's see, I know it wasn't Grenna Flame, but we rounded this corner up near Liberty Street and Constitution Wharf, and while we were standing there, we noticed a carriage drawing by with a very large woman, obviously a harlot, being serviced in her carriage by an elderly man who was suckling at a gangrenous and rotten teat. You know, I may have missed that in the original, maybe, but I've read it numerous times, and no version of I found that actually has it in there. So maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was lost in translation, which would be really weird since it was written in English in the first place. But anyways, yeah, so no idea why it's there, except for the fact that, one, it's in service to something that happens in the next scene, which I'll get to because it's also stupid. And just the fact to emphasize that, well, maybe that painting messed with Thurber's mind, and now he's hallucinating stuff, and he's seeing all this weird and unnerving things because Pickman was weird and creepy, and Lovecraft's writings were weird and unsettling sometimes, so surely we need to just shoehorn this in there for no reason. So that's all I can figure. Anyways, he sees it, this thing motions him over, the lights are out, and he goes, and then of course, you know, the lady and the older man are, you know, suddenly gone from it, and then what he sees, let's see here, oh yeah, this thing, just a smidge, yeah, this thing comes out of it, takes a swipe at him, he wakes up. It was like, oh crap, what a weird nightmare that was. And by nightmare, he doesn't mean having to watch this particular episode. He means the actual nightmare. And of course, his shirt is torn, so obviously it must have been real. But how did he get back home? Ooh, who knows? Anyway, he realizes he's late for some party that his girlfriend is throwing. She's all ticked off that he's late. Goes, and then he's introduced to her father, who is the guy that he saw in the carriage. And then he looks behind him, sees this thing staring behind. Again, no idea why the heck this is happening. The only thing is that when he sees that painting in Pickman's apartment, Pickman tells him the story of his ancestor named Lavinia, which, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that name was taken from the Dunwich Horror, which was another short story, another really good one. But for whatever reason, yeah, Lavinia. That's exactly what it was. That's where they stole this name from. So that's one of the other things they do throughout this is they start pulling things from other Lovecraft stories and just start shoving it in there where it doesn't belong. So, anyways, sees this, he has a panic attack, runs away. She's all ticked off at him, be like, "Oh, well, you're embarrassing me. It was a mistake to invite you here. This episode was a mistake. I don't recognize you anymore. I don't recognize the source material in this anymore, so we're both on the same page there." So she's all ticked off, and then next thing you know, there's a time... Oh, yeah, he goes back to Pickman's apartment to confront him about it, and he's not there, and oh, but there's weird drawings on the wall. Woo! So then it jumps ahead 17 years for no reason. And Thurber is back at the art club. He's discussing stuff. I don't even care. And he goes back and, he goes home, and there's his girlfriend who just kicked him out of her party 17 years ago and was acting like, "I don't even recognize you anymore." Obviously, they made up because he's married to her now and they have a son. Which, look, they're in a horror story adapted by some hack on Netflix. You know it's not going to end well for him. Spoiler alert. Let's see. They go to bed. She tries to get him to be frisky with her. He's like, "No, I can't. I'm not in the mood. I have a headache. My feet are cold. Whatever." Then he has a nightmare, and he goes and he wakes up and he walks downstairs, and he sees this banquet here, and oh look, it's the same banquet from the painting that Pickman had done. So look at that. Isn't that coincidental? And there's all sorts of weird crap all over the table. There's and they're drinking blood out of a chalice, and then that looks like wannabe Rasputin there. Yeah, and it's like, ooh, here's creepy stuff. And hang on, where's the table? Oh yeah, here's the table. Oh, there's bugs crawling around it. Isn't this creepy and weird? Isn't this unnerving and unsettling? Did you know Lovecraft wrote weird stuff and wrote horror? This is just like what he would write, except not at all and not even close, and it's complete crap. So yeah, then they notice him. She makes eye contact with him for some reason. Oh, and look, she's got blood, because that was the whole story, is she killed her husband or some crap, and then they chopped him up and fed him while they were still warm. And anyways, there was again, whatever. So he wakes up, goes downstairs, finds this painting of Pickman's that he just happens to have for some reason, with these weird monsters and junk all over it. Which again, the subtle movements, the animation on the painting itself that's like the only thing I liked about it, because it really does kind of give you that feeling of, oh, these things were alive, or they felt alive to to Thurber. Now, it's not because he was going crazy, which is what they're saying is happening here, or that there's something from the other side messing with his head, which is really what's going on. But he's getting ready to tear it up. His son goes in there. I forget why he leaves. I just kind of quit paying attention at that point. I'm not watching it again before this. He goes back to the art club. They're talking. Says that, oh yeah, there's this Yeah, well, spoiler alert, Pickman's back. But let's see, what is it? They're like, oh yeah, let's see, who are we waiting on? Basically says, oh yeah, by the way, there's this other painter that's come out of nowhere. I mean, you remember he said he was a good friend of yours, is kind of the idea. And it's like Pickman, and he's like, oh, he's back. It's like, oh my goodness, you know, why is this guy back? Why is he so weird? And you know, that's Thurber's idea. Is like, why is this guy back? Oh my goodness. Don't you know what he's capable of? His paintings are going to mess with your mind and make you go crazy. Oh, it's terrible. We need to get away from him. Why is he back? Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, now, if you'll recall, in the actual story, Thurber is not off-put by Pickman in the slightest. In fact, let me pull up the actual story itself real quick. And read you just a couple little lines here in case you haven't listened to the actual story. Let's see. I should think you'd have known I didn't drop Pickman for the same silly reasons that fussy old women like Dr. Reed and Joe Minot or Bosworth did. Morbid art doesn't shock me, and when a man has the genius Pickman had, I feel it an honor to know him no matter what direction his work takes. Yeah, it sounds like the type of guy that would want to stay away from it as much as possible, right? You know, let me see here. Where was it? Then there's this section here where he goes into, I believe it's the second room, where he says, scenes were blocked out with extreme care and penciled guidelines told the minute exactitude which Pickman used in getting the right perspectives and proportions. The man was great. I say it even now, knowing as much as I do. And then when he talks about the very end, when he says he's gone, says, yes, that paper was the reason I dropped Pickman. Richard Upton Pickman, the greatest artist I have ever known, and the foulest being that ever left the bounds of life into the pits of myth and madness. So again, just frequently throughout the story, Thurber is just talking about, well, there's even one part where he talks about how he used to sit and listen to him for hours like a schoolboy. I mean, he was writing a monograph, basically a research paper on weird and morbid art, and he said he was probably inspired to do it because of Pickman. Like, the guy freaking worshipped the ground this guy walked on as an artist. I mean, there was at no point that he was ever off-put by the guy. The only reason that he stopped having anything to do with him was once he learned that the models that he used were taken from photographs, which meant that these were real monsters, demons, whatever you want to call them. And he wanted to stay away from him because his life was in danger, and God only knows what he was bringing into the world, and he wanted no part of that. Had nothing to do with the art itself. It was when he found out how he was making the art. That was the breaking point for him. So again, this idea that Thurber suddenly just wanted nothing to do with Pickman, that he was just wanted to avoid him at all costs until the very end, like, is just, it's not even remotely faithful to the original at all, and it just really kind of undercuts the entire thing. So anyways, yeah, Pickman's back. He follows him around and says, you know, what the heck are you doing here? He goes back home. Pickman is at his house, drawing with the case, like, oh yeah, your boy reminds me of myself when I was that age, you know. He's like, oh, stay away from my kids, you weirdo. Goes and let's see, where is it? He ends up going out in the middle of the night, meeting with, before he even goes out to track down Pickman that night, he has a nightmare. And of course, more marital problems. Oh, this is gonna end well. Let's see, where is it? At one point, and this is where I said before that they start shoehorning in stuff from other works of Lovecraft's. So right here, when he's having a nightmare. Whoops, didn't mean to mute the volume entirely. Go back here. So, obviously, again, not anything that was in the story. He's, Thurber mentions something about, oh, I had nightmares about all these witch things or whatever. That's not, again, I don't know. Right here, this chanting. So, yeah, this right here, Yog-Sothoth. So, Yog-Sothoth he's a being from other writings of Lovecraft's, and he's typically, like, his name shows up every now and again, the Dunwich Horror, and as I mentioned before, the name Lavinia coming from that as well. He's usually invoked as part of some sort of, occult ceremony or whatever to help them carry out whatever horrific things that they're wanting to do. But that's, so it's not inappropriate, I guess, or inaccurate for them to be using the name Yog-Sothoth in the context of whatever this weird cult thing is going on here. Problem is that had nothing to do with the original story whatsoever, so it was completely pointless. But keep that in mind. That's going to come back up later on. But this, creepy lady, she's just, sitting there staring at him. He basically, she's getting ready to saw his head off, and it's like, oh no, please don't do it. And so, oh yeah, haha, oh look at how weird and unsettling this is. Oh my goodness, she's creepy. Oh my goodness. So, anyways, more of that stupidity happens. He goes to meet with Pickman, and let's just enjoy some more of this weird accent.
You stay away from my family.
I thought we were friends.
Friends. As far as I'm concerned, the balance of our friendship.
I thought we were friends. We were wicked close.
Is paid.
I'm sorry you feel that way. But it was never about the money. I value your judgment. Oh, I always have.
Again, like I said, I had friends of mine from Boston. Mike or Sarah, if you ever end up watching this, I know y'all are from Massachusetts. I know none of you talk this way. I don't know what this was, but good Lord, this is just this is bad. It was bad. Anyway, so this last part, I mean, it kind of echoes what happens at the end of the actual story, which I'm not terribly upset over how this part was done necessarily. If you recall in the short story, Pickman talks about how he is renting this little shack of an apartment or some little house out up in the north end, and basically it's dilapidated. There's this old well in the cellar, but he's got some rooms that are furnished. He's renting it out to some Sicilian dude or whatever, but he takes Thurber there. And there's these different chambers they go through that have different types of paintings. Well, first room was rooms that were all paintings based off of things that happened back during the Salem witch trials. So you're talking late 1600s, early 1700s, somewhere. And then you have the next chamber, which is where they have all the paintings, but they are more modern settings. And you have that going on. Well, and then the third room is where you have all the unfinished work, where he's actively working on different projects, things like that. Well, in the second room, obviously, Thurber talks about when he realizes that these are all modern settings, and then just the horrific nature of these paintings and how realistic they were. It freaked him out when he saw them. And when he screamed, it echoed, and, then eventually it leads to Pickman going into the next room, unloading his gun on something, basically saying, ooh, it's, I guess those rats are really hungry. Oh my goodness, they were just really, really desperate to get out. That's what he passes it off as. Well, here it's a little bit different. So this is taking place at Pickman's house. Turns out that this house was his witch ancestor's house. This is where Thurber's been having the hallucinations based on that painting that he saw, that apparently he hasn't gotten over after 17 years. But it just shows it. The weird power and the occult, magic that was happening through Pickman's paintings. Ooh, isn't that what's really going on? Nope, that wasn't, but it is now, apparently. So Pickman says that, oh, well, I need to go downstairs first. Let me check up on something. And, of course, you have all the paintings that he's got just plastered all over the house. But then Thurber starts to actually hear him talking down there. He's like, back. He's like, whoa. So he's talking to something. This is where they kind of start setting up for the real. Like, no, he's my friend. He's wicked smart. We need him. Oh, get down. Yeah, so, and of course you never see it, but there's even more paintings and creepy stuff. So, he follows him down into the cellar, which, again, is, you know, where the last scene of this short, again, this is probably about as close as they've been to adapting any part of the actual story in quite a while throughout the episode. And this is, what, like 48 minutes into it? So it's really kind of sad. But you have the more monstrous paintings that you have there, and then, let's see, this right here, this is the, pretty sure this is the, black goat with 1,000 young that is mentioned in, I know for a fact it's mentioned in the thing on the doorstep. Again, another good short story. Very well done. I love it. But he starts seeing that. You hear the chanting again. Yog-Sothoth, that's the name where he's hallucinating all this. So now there's pure turpentine. So he gets the idea that I need to go and just start setting crap on fire. Burn it down. Oh, I have to stop you before your paintings infect my mind. Don't you get it? It's too creepy and weird. Now I got this weird thing over here that looks like a reject from Gremlins. Had a weird mutated baby with a bullfrog or something. I don't know what this is. You know, it's a mogwai after being on meth for so many years, I suppose. But anyways, he's like, no, I can't say it, please, I can't take it anymore, blah, blah. So he's like, let me show you something, and then he accidentally shoots Pickman, surprise, surprise. Here's where the big reveal takes place. Let me see. Yeah, he picks up the photograph off the floor, and this is when he realizes, like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And so Pickman's like, family portraits. The paintings don't come from my head. They came from life. You know, whatever, however he says it. Anyway, so again, in the original, the whole thing is that his discovery is quite by accident, which, I mean, I guess this is by accident too, but Pickman never told him any of this. He figures it out on his own after he freaks out, accidentally grabs the painting, or the photograph. Pickman goes to, you know, lay down some business and shoot the thing in the face and get him to go away, and then he just kind of goes home, and then he finds it in his pocket the next morning and realizes, oh crap, this is a photograph of the thing he was painting. Like, this was something real he was working on. So that's how that happens in the original. Well, can't have it happen that way because we've have to have a big stupid action scene at the end for no reason. So he sets the place on fire, but as he does, the well opens, and this is one of the crappiest looking things, right? Oh, I mean, I'm pretty sure this, if this was CG, this is just terrible. I'm pretty sure it's just some dude in a rubber suit that they had get up at some point, like right here. No, that does look more like CG. I don't know, but the CG looks like a dude in a rubber suit with his ball chin like hanging off here with his spike. I don't know where they got this design from, but again, part of that cabinet of curiosities is, what were y'all on when you thought that this should be the climax, the big monster reveal, that this is what it was? I mean, just, I can't. Whatever. I mean, that's what they decided to go with. It's too late now. But he ends up drags Pickman back down into the cellar after it's, burning or whatever. Where's the I say all the pictures are going up in flames. He's dragging him down in there. Oh, well, he's taking his family member down. Now, again, very little resemblance to the original story. About the only thing they ever imply about Pickman's true nature is that he may be a changeling. Thurber talks about how there were the weird people who would leave their babies out for the changelings to come in and swap the kids out, and then they would raise this weird, creature on their own, and probably teaching us some weird occult stuff or whatever. But he says that, well, what happens if, one of these things was, kidnapped and the parents didn't know? Well, you had the painting of that Puritan family where the father is reading from the scriptures. The family is all, enjoying it. They all show piety and reverence. He said, but the, what's the exact quote from it? Let's see here. So the dog said, and no sooner had I wondered what he made of their own young, as left with mankind in the form of changelings, than my eye caught a picture embodying that very thought. It was that of an ancient Puritan interior, a heavily beamed room with lattice windows, a subtle and clumsy 17th century furniture, with the family sitting about while the father read from the scriptures. Every face but one showed nobility and reverence, but that one reflected the mockery of the pit. It was that of a young man in years, and no doubt belonged to a supposed son of that pious father, but in essence, it was the kin of the unclean things. It was their changeling, and in a spirit of supreme irony, Pickman had given the features a very perceptible resemblance to his own. So again, the idea about the closest you're ever going to get is that Pickman may have found out that he was a changeling, and so when he painted this stuff in that particular image, he ends up making himself look like one of these things and, kind of distorts his face a little bit. In the first chamber, where it's the paintings of the old Salem witch trials, talks about that there's a witch hanged up on Gallows Hill, which is where his ancestor had been hanged, and he had the witch's face look somewhat distorted, kind of like these monsters that was going around. Again, possibly that ancestry that he had some of this otherworldly blood in his veins, but there's nothing that says that, well, he was just painting his family members. That's not ever revealed. Well, maybe, okay, but again, I don't, it's just, okay, sure. These are family portraits. They didn't cover, they came from my life. Yeah, it's stupid that there was no reason to then have it turn into this huge, because again, Thurber, the only reason he started avoiding him is once he found out the truth, and that didn't happen until like the day after this. But, you can't adapt it the way it's written, obviously, because, they have Pickman explain it because they think the audience is too stupid to figure it out. That's the whole thing. So he burns the place down, runs back to the art gallery, and he sees all these paintings of Pickmans that are, posted up on the walls. And it's like, okay, well, this is... he's like, no, we can't have this happening. What's going on? And, I could have sworn I burned all these paintings burned. Oh my goodness, how did this happen? There's something supernatural and weird happening. No! Okay, fine, whatever. So then he goes, talks to his friend Joe, who works at the art gallery. Incidentally, I don't think the name Elliot ever comes up. I don't really remember. Because this bears almost no resemblance to the actual show. Well, he goes, and Joe has mutilated himself, and there's the goat with 1,000 young, and there's the cult, and whatever else. But, of course, when he walks up to him, he's chanting, he's coming from the darkness to show us something. So, something from the other side is trying to break through, which, again, is actually something that Lovecraft would write about. Yog-Sothoth being an example, where he would try to come through to this world. The Dunwich Horror really kind of illustrates that. This, again, it's cosmic horror, things on the bounds of our reality that are waiting to break through in our world and just wreak havoc and, drive everybody to insanity and just destroy everything. Kind of standard stuff like that. Well, at this point, whoever the teleplay writer was, or whoever the screenwriter was, decided that, what? It was a great movie, Event Horizon. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly where they got the inspiration for all, the cannibalism side of things. Because he freaks out that, wife and kid are looking at the paintings. He's like, no, you can't look at these. It'll drive you mad. It'll drive you crazy. Don't you understand? Pickman's friggin' weird. He paints weird stuff and it's unsettling. Did you know Lovecraft wrote weird stuff? So it's just weird and creepy. It's just... By this point in the episode, I was just like, what is this stupidity? Why are you doing this? So, he runs home to the wife, and he's apologizing for being a crap husband and not meeting her needs and all this stuff. And she's just chopping up meat. You know, now, surprise, surprise. Oh, well, the son is nowhere to be found. Nobody knows where he is. She's just making dinner. She's just chopping up stuff. And again, this is just if you've seen horror stories or horror at all, you know that when someone is sitting there talking and they're just mindlessly going through an activity and they're not responding to anything you say and you're just carrying on, and then there's silence and the camera angles. Look, you know something horrific is about to happen. So, surprise. And you know what? Because I had seen Event Horizon before, I was like, what do you want to bet? That when she turns around, she got no eyeballs. And sure enough, oh, surprise, surprise, ta-da, there she is. Now, the actual screenshot here, I've had to edit with googly eyes because YouTube would flag it, probably for excessive gore. And, you know, did a little creative editing. Now she's just crying. That's just all water. It's not blood gushing down her face. So there's this, she's also got this thing on her forehead that looked similar. Like, okay, so when he was in the, no, I think it's just mutilate. I don't know. It could be a sigil or something they carved in there. I mean, it's hard to tell. I saw some places online where it's like, well, it's a warding sign, and that was another Lovecraft reference because why not? But I'll say this. I mean, most women can't pull off the no eyeball look, and you put some sunglasses on, you don't notice. But anyways, she starts saying weird stuff to him about, oh, well, I know where it's coming from, and, oh, what's the exact line of dialogue? It's something stupid. Oh, yeah, they said, well, you'll spoil the meal. So there's also blood over here, obviously. And then, pans over, and there's that right there. And, of course, he starts asking, where's our son? Where's our boy? What have you done with him? Where is he? And it's like, dude, we already know, like, she's been chopping up the kid. Alright, we get it. We know what's happening. This is just a really hacky way to end the episode. She just goes right back to chopping the blood stain on the floor there. Why not? I was over there. It's like, oh no, what's in the box? What's in the oven? And I was, oh look, it's the kid's head. And credits. And there we go. Why? Just why? The original story is perfectly fine. All they had to do was you have a... Oh, well, there's Joe Mano, all you had to do was have, like, a restaurant scene where Thurber meets up with his friend, Elliot, who is nowhere in here. Maybe looks a little on edge. Maybe a little nervous, because he obviously talks about his nerves being shot. All he has to do is go and say, yeah, man, and just start telling the story, and then just have flashbacks back and forth. Maybe some narration over the top when it's his conversation where Pickman is ranting and raving about how much, that area sucks because there's not enough real ghosts yet that have looked on hell and seen and known the meaning of what they saw. There's none of that yet. Have flashbacks to that. Have flashbacks to them going to the apartment up in North End. A little, maybe some internal monologuing. Whatever. There was no reason to have some weird chick nursing a dude in the carriage with a rotting mammary gland. Like that's... Or, oh, I'm just having hallucinations and nightmares about getting my head chopped off and all this other stuff. And, ooh, now my wife is pulled an Event Horizon. And, look, if you don't get the Event Horizon reference, there's a point at the end where, like, Sam Neill is having some nightmare about his wife offing herself. And then she's cut her eyes out in the bathroom and whatever. Anyways, if you've seen the movie, like, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways. I mean, and even like the carriage scene, it was almost like the dude had watched Event Horizon mixed in the cannibalism and said, you know, it was also an awesome scene that nobody felt uncomfortable by, was that scene in The Shining where he's walking through the hotel and he sees the dude sitting on the bed and the other guy kneeling in front of him in a fursuit, and the dude in the first, and both of them just kind of look at the door at him like, what, you got a problem with the clearly, you know, shady stuff when, you know, uncomfortable things we're doing in here to each other? You know, you don't want to sit here and watch, like, what are you, a bigot? You know, it's like, and again, if you've seen The Shining, you know what I'm talking about. It's like this guy who's like, you know what, Pickman's model, the short story's okay, but you know what it needs? A mix of The Shining and Event Horizon with maybe some eyes cut out. And then what we'll do is we'll just show some random crap from other parts of the Lovecraft mythos into it and call it a day. Who cares if it looks anything like, or, you know, reflects the tone of the original? We know better, you know? And just going through the comments section on IMDb, just all the people who are like, you know, don't listen to these people who loved Lovecraft, you know, saying it's bad. This is a perfect adaptation of it. It's like, you've obviously never read more than, I can't even, it's hard for me to even think they've actually genuinely read anything from Lovecraft, because none of what is in this reflects the original hardly at all, from characterization to plot development to the reveal at the end to, I mean, it is almost barely recognizable as being from that short story. It's just, it boggles the mind how anybody thought it was. Anyway, that's it for this one. As I said, I'll be reviewing Dreams in the Witch House. Should be a lot shorter because it bears pretty much no resemblance. So there's really not much to compare it to. It's just like, well, there was this weird thing they did which barely had anything to do with the original. Even less so than this. So, you know, I'd give this maybe a 3 or a 4. I mean, there were some... let me put it this way. If you weren't basing it on an original work, I probably wouldn't be as offended by it. And I wouldn't hate it as intensely. But having loved that original source material for so many years, seeing this was just... anybody... I mean, this was just beneath Del Toro. I mean, whatever this was,
You're better than this.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone's better than this, because this is the worst thing I have ever seen.
Anyway, so before I do the next review, I will put out a recording of Dreams in the Witch House. I'll try to do a better job on that than I did Pickman's model, which it wasn't terrible, but you know, still not where I wanted it to be after listening to it again. But you know, again, practice makes perfect, and that's what all this is for. So, look, I hope you understand why I was so frustrated with this episode, because, and here's the other thing, is that the actual show itself, Cabinet of Curiosities, the first 2 episodes were actually pretty solid. The second one, The Graveyard Rats, is very much Lovecraftian in the way it's written. In fact, most of the episodes, and that's the sad part, and that's what frustrates me so much about it, is the rest of the series had so much more, except the last episode. The last episode was kind of, it was too optimistic at the ending for it to really be anything like Lovecraft, but the rest of the episodes had more of that Lovecraftian horror and that atmosphere and ambiance to it, far more than either of this or the next episode ever did. And that's what's so disappointing about it, is because they had people who clearly could have adapted it and could have done a good job with that, but with the screenplay that they wrote for it, it just did such a disservice to the source material that, you know, for anybody that actually likes the source material, I couldn't recommend it as a good adaptation. If you didn't call it Pickman's model, or if you didn't use any of the same names, fantastic, you have your own little weird short story, you know, fine, whatever. But don't put his name on it because it had nothing to do with what he wrote. So, anyways, I hope you've been able to enjoy it somewhat and understand my pain and my disappointment.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But anyways, all right, well, that's going to be it for me, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, take care.